Here we go.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at the 20 darkest moments in movie history.
Even now, I find it hard to believe that. It just doesn't seem real to me.
For this list, we'll be looking at the worst behind-the-scenes stories that shaped cinematic history. Did we forget a particularly awful piece of film lore? Let us know in the comments below. Marilyn Monroe's death. Something's gotta give. Marilyn Monroe still ranks among the most famous stars in Hollywood history, reaching the height of her fame in the mid to late 50s with a bunch of classic comedies. She entered the 1960s with her fair share of success and a slew of personal obstacles, taking part in a proposed project named Something's Got to Give.
You know, far away in the South Sea Islands, when a man hurts himself and he doesn't want people to see, you know what he does?
What?
He has somebody else cry for him.
How does that help?
You'd be surprised.
At this point in her career, Monroe was known for forgetting lines and missing work days. She was then fired and reluctantly rehired in a troubled production schedule.
The studio agreed to pay her more than twice her original salary to finish the film.
Overdosing in 1962, the actor's hectic life came to a tragic end and entered into entertainment legend. Many still argue that she was taken advantage of during her life as well as in death. Set accidents. The Exorcist. If you were working on The Exorcist back in the early 1970s, you might have thought there was much more than a fictional haunting happening. A series of accidents and strange occurrences plagues the productions. Actor Linda Blair was hooked up to a rig for a scene where her character gets possessed, thrashing her around and injuring her back. This doesn't even include bizarre events such as a set catching fire, mysterious warnings from a priest, and an additional injury to star Ellen Burstyn. William Friedkin's terrifying vision is considered an absolute classic to this day, regardless of the behind-the-scenes tales. 9 years later, the film Poltergeist would experience similarly spooky stories that led some to believe horror movie sets were cursed.
What's happening?
Get the car!
Nazi propaganda. Triumph of the will. A few decades into its creation, filmmaking became a powerful and dangerous tool for propaganda purposes. This was especially true for Nazis in the 1930s. Hitler rose to power and needed help from a filmmaker to get his hateful message across. Enter Leni Riefenstahl, the director that produced documentaries for the Third Reich and props them up as a supposedly superior force. The work Olympia showcased the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, while her most infamous project was Triumph of the Will. It introduces rallies and speeches that espouse the false prosperity of a fascist takeover. Riefenstahl was commended for her technical abilities, but condemned for her association with and cinematic glorification of the Nazis.
Also einmal war ich nie stolz, auch heute nicht, früher nicht. Stolz worauf? Für diese Schinderei, die ich da hatte, für diese Arbeit. Das war entsetzlich, ich bin fast draufgegangen, gesundheitlich beim Schneiden dieses Films. Und was habe ich davon gehabt?
John Belushi's death. John Belushi was one of the premier stars from the first series of Saturday Night Live. Starting in the late 1970s, the actor broke into films such as Animal House.
I'm a zit. Get it?
He was as famous for his comedy stylings and projects like The Blues Brothers as he was for his hard partying habits. Sadly, Belushi's vices eventually caught up with him.
Comic actor John Belushi died today at a rented hotel bungalow in the Hollywood Hills.
In 1982, he overdosed on a lethal combination of drugs. Hollywood is no stranger to these kinds of sudden deaths, but this one in particular was a wake-up call for many of the performer's friends, colleagues, and fans. He left a significant hole in the future of comedy and continues to inspire a generation of imitators.
Let's do it.
Hattie McDaniel at the Academy Awards. Gone with the Wind. Hattie McDaniel was a trailblazing black artist during the golden age of Hollywood.
Mammy, darling.
No use to try to sweet talk me, Miss Scarlett. I knows you ever since I put the first pair of diapers on you.
Her performance in the epic Gone with the Wind earned her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, becoming the first black person to win an Oscar. Unfortunately for her, she wasn't properly celebrated for the achievement. The ceremony was held in 1940, and segregation was still very much a reprehensible part of American society. To account for this racist policy, the Academy placed McDaniel at a side table away from the white nominees.
This is one of the happiest moments of my life. My heart is too full to tell you just how I feel. And may I say thank you and God bless you.
Her victory and speech that day gave some glimmer of hope for race relations in the United States, but the governing body ultimately failed to show her the respect she deserved. James Dean's crash. Among the brightest stars of the 1950s, James Dean helped bring a new style of acting to Hollywood. His vulnerable parts in the likes of East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause were landmarks for their decade.
You're tearing me apart!
What?
You say one thing, he says another, and everybody changes back again!
Dean had finished work on the movie Giant in 1955 when a car accident cut his life short. While driving his Porsche in Southern California, the actor crashed and died from his injuries. His youthful energy was only beginning to reveal itself to audiences. Having only been credited for 3 films, the performer stunned people with his dynamic presence and became an example for many future actors.
Everybody thought I had a duster?
Y'all thought old Spindle Top Mo Burnett was all it was, didn't you?
Well, I'm here to tell you it ain't, boy.
Tippi Hedren's mistreatment. The Birds.
Hello, Mrs. McGregor. Oh, hello, Miss Daniels. Have you ever seen so many gulls? What do you suppose it is?
Well, there must be a storm at sea that can drive them inland, you know.
Tippi Hedren received the opportunity of a lifetime to work with director Alfred Hitchcock. She was cast in the lead role of The Birds, but her experience with the filmmaker was nothing short of horrible. He subjected the star to scenes that put her in harm's way, never seeming to care all that much about her safety. This included a sequence where actual birds hurt her. The performer's story is unfortunately not unique, mirroring Stanley Kubrick's poor treatment of Shelley Duvall while filming The Shining. Hitchcock harassed and threatened Hedren throughout their working relationship, which extended to another movie named Marnie.
You don't love me. I'm just something you've caught. You think I'm some kind of animal you've trapped.
She states that the whole collaboration almost ended her career for good, but she persevered and later returned to acting. Radioactive Set, The Conqueror.
You do well, Kumlik. For while I have fingers to grasp a sword and eyes to see, your treacherous head is not safe on your shoulders, nor your daughter in her bed.
Of all the movies throughout his career, The Conqueror stands as one of the few that completely miscast John Wayne. He's completely out of place in his role of Genghis Khan, but the larger production had much more scientific problems to worry about. The production took place in Utah and was downwind of a nuclear testing site. There's several theories about the potential health hazards that come from shooting in such a location. Many people associated with the production died from cancer, including Wayne, co-star Agnes Moorehead, and director Dick Powell. Some feel that it was just a coincidence, but the significant portion of crew members affected by cancer keeps the theory alive.
You will take pleasure with the offspring of your father's slayer. She will bring woe to you, my son, and to your people.
Heath Ledger's passing. The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
Can I ask you a question? Do you dream? Or should I say, can you put a price on your dreams?
Over the course of the 2000s, Heath Ledger performed in films that received rave reviews, such as Brokeback Mountain. The height of his acting powers arrived with his interpretation of the Joker character in The Dark Knight. Before that film was released, the actor started work on Terry Gilliam's fantasy film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
What are you doing? Trying to save your daughter's life, sir! Save? Oh, well, I figured I could be the fifth soul. See, I could take that risk, sir.
Ledger failed to finish working on the project after a fatal overdose. Leaving behind an impressive body of work, his shocking death drew tributes from his contemporaries. The performer would even go on to be the second actor to posthumously win an Oscar.
Well, you look nervous. Is it the scars? You want to know how I got them?
Gilliam would alter his movie in order to showcase the final work of the talented star, casting other actors to finish production. Judy Garland's troubled career and death.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high.
A beloved Hollywood figure, Judy Garland began her professional career in the studio system. Her unforgettable performance in The Wizard of Oz and other musicals turned her into a superstar. The actor's early success didn't come without a cost, as she fell prey to abusive behavior behind the scenes. Garland was given pills at a young age to regulate her weight and to keep her alert for extended hours. Carrying over into her adult life, this drug intake turned into a dangerous substance use disorder that involved alcohol. The performer tried to keep singing and acting to varying degrees of success throughout the 1950s and 60s. In 1969, the artist overdosed and was yet another fatality of the entertainment industry.
You won't forget me, will you? Promise you won't.
Manipulation behind the scenes. Last Tango in Paris.
You want to know why you don't want to know anything about me? Because you hate women.
Oh, really?
What they have ever done to you?
Upon its controversial release in 1972, Last Tango in Paris garnered mostly positive reviews for its lead performances by Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider. Both actors provided an abundance of vulnerability in their on-screen romance. For Schneider, certain moments felt all too real and even degrading.
You afraid?
No.
No? You're always afraid.
The infamous butter sequence was simulated for the movie, but the actor still mentioned feeling humiliated during the production. She blamed Brando, and especially director Bernardo Bertolucci, for mistreating her and not giving her more agency in regard to the most graphic scene. With this information in mind, the whole movie feels tainted by the filmmaker's deplorable decisions. The death of Helena Hutchins. Rust.
This morning, a stunning new look at the shock on the set of the movie Rust.
Were you in the room when someone was shot?
Holding the gun, yeah.
Filming an independent western, Alec Baldwin was prepping for a shot involving a revolver. His gun went off and hit cinematographer Helena Hutchins and director Joel Souza. Hutchins tragically died from the resulting injuries in what became a high-profile case of mismanagement on set.
How did a real bullet get on that set?
I have no idea. Someone put a live bullet in a gun, a bullet that wasn't even supposed to be on the property.
Some people blamed Baldwin for holding the gun, and others questioned the armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the person responsible for preparing all weapons for the production. Others focused on the fact that live rounds somehow ended up on the set at all. Rumors and accusations continued to swirl as of this writing, but the victims in this case should have never been harmed in the first place.
It's not my call right now to believe whether he goes to prison or not. Our focus is to get justice for Helena Hutchins and to let everybody know that just because you're an A-list actor, you're not going to be above the law.
Natalie Wood's drowning. Brainstorm.
But you have to promise me that you'll never leave me again.
I'm not going anywhere.
Promise me.
Starting at an early age, Natalie Wood was a prominent actor in all sorts of classic films. She grew up on screen and eventually starred in movies such as West Side Story and Splendor in the Grass.
Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, glory in the flower, we will grieve not.
Wood later married fellow actor Robert Wagner and films the movie Brainstorm in the early 1980s. During a break in the production, she accompanied Wagner and her co-star Christopher Walken on a boat trip, which soon turned deadly. The actor then drowned under mysterious circumstances. People have their suspicions as to the ultimate cause of her death, but the bottom line remains that she died tragically and much too young at just 43.
Why does a case that is now really more than 36 years old matter?
Because somebody died, and no matter what, ultimately that's our job, to find the truth.
Brandon Lee's death, The Crow.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Stop me if you heard this one.
On the sets of the comic book adaptation The Crow, a tragic mistake killed the star. One scene required the use of a prop gun, which was not intended to fire anything other than a harmless dummy cartridge. The barrel was blocked by fragments of a previously fired blank and improperly inspected before being used. Practicing the proposed scene with the firearm, Brandon Lee was accidentally shot and killed by co-star Michael Massey. His death sparked renewed concerns about set safety standards that continue to this day. Members of the production, including Massey, were haunted by the incident, and the finished film was dedicated to Lee's memory.
What happened to Brandon was a tragic accident, and it's something that I'm gonna live with.
Helicopter Crash, Twilight Zone, the movie. Decades after the Twilight Zone show was released, filmmakers came together to create a cinematic adaptation. This included an anthology format with a new director helming each section of the movie. John Landis directed a story involving actor Vic Morrow, whose character finds himself in a disturbing trip through horrific episodes in history. One sequence involved the use of a helicopter and pyrotechnics.
I'm American! I'm American!
Defying child labor laws, Landis and others allowed young actors to be on set for a night shoot that went horribly wrong. The helicopter crash resulted in the deaths of Morrow and 2 young performers. Landis and certain members of the production were tried and acquitted for their actions leading up to the tragedy. Blackface and racist stereotypes. In the earliest days of movie making, racist stereotypes were employed as a means of entertainment. This predates the medium and stretches back to the days of stage performances that used blackface in minstrel shows. With the invention of sound, white performers continued to play other races in a variety of roles. This both kept certain stereotypes alive as well as taking away jobs from people of color. The use of makeup and other prosthetics allowed for white actors to pretend to be other races in poorly dated films. Everyone from Fred Astaire to Judy Garland can be seen in blackface during the early days of Hollywood, revealing the extensive history of racism in cinema history.
Well, you know, any form of history that gets suppressed or repressed or erased out, it comes back to haunt.
Hollywood Blacklist. In the years following World War II, America experienced a wave of anti-communist sentiment. Many proponents of the movement were worried about possible Soviet influences in the U.S. film industry. This led to the creation of the House Un-American Activities Committee, which set out to find alleged communists and their sympathizers. The Hollywood Blacklist resulted in a number of artists being unable to work for years. This was partially carried out through the testimony of fellow film workers, some of whom named friends and colleagues in order to save their own careers.
Friends? What friends? Who the hell has the luxury of friends? I've got allies and enemies. There's no room for anything else.
The larger movement finally died down in the 1960s, but irrevocable damage had already been done to various people in Hollywood.
Are you proud of what happened in Hollywood at that time?
I think it was probably a very necessary thing at the time, because the radical liberals were going to take over our business.
The Birth of a Nation. Directed by D.W. Griffith, The Birth of a Nation sparked controversy upon its release in 1915. It's an adaptation of the book The Klansman, which takes a look at post-Civil War America with a heavy slant towards pro-Confederate bigotry. This includes graphic depictions of the Ku Klux Klan and their racist actions in the Reconstruction era of the United States. Any of Griffith's cinematic achievements were overshadowed by the main narrative's racism and promotion of the KKK. The project was also credited with influencing a resurgence of the terrorist group not long after the movie's release.
This film regenerized the Klan. The Klan was dormant. It was dead.
The Manson Murders.
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
Cult leader Charles Manson assembled a cast of misfits and indoctrinated them with a twisted ideology. At the very end of the 1960s, members of his so-called family terrorized the Los Angeles area. This included the murders of actor Sharon Tate and others in especially brutal attacks. There's still some legal uncertainty surrounding Manson's ultimate connection to the crime. Popular belief suggests that it was allegedly under his orders to go to various houses and commit horrible acts. These gruesome events brought a dark close to the decade and traumatized many people associated with Tate.
And it continues to shock the conscience, both because of the brutality of the murders and because of this eerie cult-like control that Manson had over his followers.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The Weinstein Revelations. At one time, one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, producer Harvey Weinstein's behavior finally caught up with him.
Who have you talked to?
We've sent you who we're covering, Harvey.
Who have you talked to?
A 2017 expose started a firestorm of revelations about the man's abuses of women in the industry. Many actors came forward to tell their story, and several of them cited similar tactics from the producer. Weinstein assaulted women, harassed many people, and threatened to ruin careers if any stories about him leaked. He's since been the subject of legal action and will possibly serve the remainder of his life behind bars.
Trial means so much to so many, but it will mean the most to the brave women testifying and to all of us silence breakers.
The surrounding discussion about his crimes and others like it partly inspire the rise of the #MeToo movement.